The Substance stars Demi Moore, former member of the Brat Pack, once considered to be the most beautiful woman in the world. She single-handedly started the trend of pole dancing fitness after she starred in striptease. So beautiful that Robert Redford paid 1 million buckaroos to spend just one night with her in Indecent Proposal. She was so gorgeous that she tempted Michael Douglas to cheat on his wife in Disclosure. And while Demi's still beautiful, the fact is she's 62 years old, wrinkly, and sagging in all the wrong places. The movie asks, what price would a former superstar, known for her beauty, like Demi, pay to go back to her perky phase? Let's find out in The Substance. Demi is playing Elizabeth Sparkle, a formerly beautiful Hollywood superstar. But she's more than just looks. She has talent too, and the movie lets you know that because it goes out of its way to show you the Oscar that she won. So you know that she can act real good. And she has her own Hollywood star, so she's no flash in the pan flavor of the day. Nah, she's Hollywood royalty. But now she's older. As an older celebrity who still has some of that former sparkling beauty, she no longer headlines movies. Nah. Instead, she's now hosting morning exercise shows on televisions for stay-at-home moms. You know, the ones where they wear leotards and they dance around and say, 1, 2, 3, don't quit on me now. And while her celebrity status is not as glittery as it used to be, she still has the adoration of her fans. I mean, she's on TV and she's always told that she's beautiful. She still has the public's attention. But all that goes poof, or should I say, when Harvey, a TV producer played by Dennis Quaid, tells her that she's too old to be on TV. He tells her that as he sucks down some crawdaddies with the same gusto as he did in The Big Easy. Thrown to the curb for being too old, she now has no attention, no one telling her how beautiful she is. And in the film, that's all she has. The vapid affectations of a fickle public who plays their role in her narcissistic fantasy. Since she's a celebrity, everyone has to tell her, ooh, I'm a big fan, you're so beautiful, I loved you in that movie with Patrick Swayze. That's all she has. She lives alone in a fancy high-rise apartment. No kids, no friends, no community, just her and the beauty she feeds off. In fact, there's a huge portrait of her wearing her Jane Fonda leotards, taking up a whole wall in her empty and joyless golden prison of a penthouse. What to do, all alone and no more attention from anyone now that she's no longer gonna be on TV. The shock of that realization that she can no longer coast on her beauty hits her like a sack of stones. She ambles down the footpath, thinking of her whole existence and how it's over now. No more easy life on Beauty Street. When suddenly, a former classmate comes up to her. He mentions how she was always the most beautiful woman in high school, back in the 80s, her Brat Pack days, and he invites her out for some drinks. You know, he's a nice guy, but maybe a bit too nice. He's got glasses, he isn't 6 feet 2 inches, he's not famous, doesn't appear to be rich because he's driving some sort of regular car, not a Ferrari. Nah, he's just a nice looking guy offering friendships with the hopes of a deeper connection. But Elizabeth just gives him the stink eye because he's a bit too much of a beta male for her. And while she politely takes his number, she walks away from the chance to have something real with a person who knows her from before her famous days. Nah, she wants nothing to do with him because he gave her the ick. Instead, she chooses to inject herself with an experimental serum that looks like the concoction in Reanimator in the hopes of being beautiful once again. She acquires the substance by going to a dingy alleyway where she collects her fix. The substance comes with instructions. It basically says a better version of her will emerge, but they have to share the experience. Every 7 days, they have to switch off. 1 week of old lady Sparkle, 1 week of new and improved version Sparkle. And what is the price of this more beautiful, younger version? Well, that's where the movie really excels. The birthing sequence, if you can call it that, is quite gruesome. It's slimy, chunky, bloody, gory. It's very visceral, crackly, great sound effects. And what emerges from this birthing process is a young, 22-year-old version of Demi Moore, played by Margaret Qualley. She takes on the name of Sue. Now, this actress, she's the daughter of Andie MacDowell. That was another hottie from the 80s and 90s. In fact, she was the Jane that convinced Tarzan to put a ring on it back in Greystoke in the 1984 movie. The newer version of Elizabeth is obsessed by her youth and her beauty. She can't get enough of it. She stares at herself in the mirror for hours on end, just touching her supple skin and looking at her perfect smile. The cinematography is quite vivid in this respect. It has extreme close-ups of her lips, her eyes, her skin, her voluptuous buttocks, her cleavage, her thighs, her toes. It really ogles her. While Elizabeth, the older version, and Sue, the new and improved version, appear to be very different people, they are in fact one person. In fact, they share bodily fluids. For the 7 days that Sue is alive, Demi Moore has to lie unconscious, being fed with an IV in order to generate enough spinal fluid. She lies unconscious, in the nude, just discarded like a sack of flesh. And as this sack of flesh is lying there, Sue has to inject the spinal fluid that she extracts from this sack of flesh into herself on a daily basis in order to stabilize. Now, after 7 days, they switch. It's now time for the young and beautiful Sue to lie unconscious while the older and more haggard Elizabeth lives her life. While she is conscious, her body refills the fluid that feeds the younger version. And the younger version then lies there like a sack of flesh of her own for 7 more days, and she's fed through an IV tube of this fluid that she has to consume. Now, what does the older Elizabeth do with her awake 7 days when she finally gets the chance to live and breathe again? Nothing. Nothing at all. She doesn't try to join a community center now that she has time because she's not on TV to sort donations for the poor. She doesn't coach a little league girls soccer team. She doesn't try to pick up rubbish on the beach or take those plastic can holders off of turtles' necks or help remove graffiti from the walls of Hollywood. She doesn't even join a bridge club to try to make some friends. Nope. All she does is stay home and watch TV and eat. Oh, and she stares longingly at the billboard of her younger self that is now outside of her window. And she stares longingly at the younger version of her, Sue, lying unconscious like a sack of flesh in the closet. And once a week, she goes to make a pickup at the dingy alley to get a resupply of her fix, the substance. And when it's the younger version's turn to have her 7 days in the sun, what does she do? Well, her narcissism draws her to taking over the TV show formerly hosted by her older self. She wants people to tell her how beautiful she is. All that drives her is having her younger self ogled at, being on TV, being told how beautiful she is. Nothing more. Nothing more. Nothing deeper. Just the vapid life that she already lived as Elizabeth. She's making the same choices that led her to living alone, without friends or family or community. All that matters is the adulation of her beauty. The only other thing that Sue does is party. She likes to drink, she likes to go to nightclubs, and she likes to bring home the bad boys with the six-pack and the muscles. Apparently, Sue is in her party phase. And she doesn't want it to end. Oh, no, no, no. She doesn't want to lie unconscious for 7 days while the old, haggard version of herself sits around having a pity party and stuffing food down her face. No way. She wants to party. She wants to live it up. So she starts to steal another day and another day and another day. Instead of switching off after 7 days, she'll suck out just a little bit more spinal fluid to have that extra day. But each day that she steals makes the older version of herself, Elizabeth, even older and more haggard. Her beauty is taking away from her own life. And what does she do? She keeps taking more and more and more just to keep living the life of vapid, narcissistic adulation until payment is due. The film has a very stylized aesthetic. The framing is exquisite and it creates the emotional subtext for the film. There are shots where the characters are in a brightly lit bathroom that's so small in the frame and it's surrounded by darkness, trapped in a well of narcissism, vanity, and self-pity, unable to escape the consequences of their own making. And the sound design. It's extremely creative and insidious. You'll start to feel the film getting under your skin just through the use of sound, and it does it in all sorts of ways. But where the film is truly exceptional is the special effects. There's not much CGI or digital effects in this film. Not for the transformations, not for the body horror. Nope. Instead, the effects are quite visceral. They use good old-fashioned corn syrup, latex, slime. And if you enjoy good body horror, then you'll be loving this film. Now, if body horror is a bit too much for you, the chances are that the themes of delusional narcissism and vanity will keep you engaged. You'll just have to cover your eyes for large stretches. What about the acting? Well, Demi Moore gives a commanding performance as the discarded movie star. She brings pathos and loneliness to the role. You can tell that this is something that she's lived. But there are some moments where she's losing her sanity. They're a bit hammy and over the top. Instead of bringing desperation and pathos to those scenes, it's more of a look at me acting through all this makeup. Margaret Qualley also gives a very good performance as a younger, entitled, and vain Sue. She's able to show us what kind of person Elizabeth was in her youth and how she made the decisions that led her to being an old, demented lady living in a fancy penthouse. And when the movie takes a darker turn and both of these characters have to endure the consequences of these decisions, the actresses are up to the task. But having said that, there are moments where there's the I'm acting syndrome, and that sort of takes over. Well, like I said, instead of pathos and desperation, the actresses give more of a histrionic pantomime. And finally, there's Dennis Quaid as Harvey. He's the movie producer, or TV producer in this case. He dresses in ridiculous suits. Some of them are made out of shark skin. Some of them are velvet. He's over the top and he's exuberant. Now, there might be the appearance of him being a slime bag TV producer who can't even remember his assistants' names. In fact, in one scene, he gives his assistant a new name that's shorter because it's easier to remember. But even though his name is Harvey, he never abuses his power in that way. There's no casting couch scenes. In fact, it doesn't seem like he's interested in that at all, and he even mentions his wife in the film. The truth is that he is one of the only characters in the film who tells Elizabeth the truth, albeit he does it in a very callous way and very upfront. But he lets her know, your time is up. You're too old to be a glamorous, pretty superstar on TV. Now, that doesn't mean that she's too old to be acting or in movies. There's always character roles. There's always great parts that you can play. But being an aerobics instructor might not be a realistic endeavor at this stage in her life. Now, The Substance is a very well-crafted film. The sets, the lighting, the effects, the props, the camera framing, all of these are in tune, and they work together to give the viewer a very visceral experience. The performances are what really bring the film to life. Combined with the narrative and the themes of the story, Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley give two very good performances as the older and the younger versions of this character, and they make you understand why this character would want to make these decisions. While you may be wondering, why the hell would she do that? You'll also be able to empathize with the reasons for that decision. And you'll understand why Demi Moore goes to a dingy alleyway to get this green serum that she injects into herself to make a virtual clone in a slimy and syrupy and gruesome sort of way. That's where the film truly excels, in developing the idea of youth and beauty at all costs. It does not shy away from the price that is paid by a narcissist, by a vapid person, by someone who is so vain that they only care about fame and adulation. There's no other consideration other than being famous and being beautiful. No considerations for anyone else except themselves, no matter what the cost, even if that cost is to themselves, because the younger is stealing from the older. It puts the decisions of these women under a microscope, and it does not flinch at what it finds. And when one of the characters, a formerly beautiful woman now appearing as a horrid, deformed monster, says, "But it's still me," it may appear as a moment of sadness and pathos, yet in reality, that is just right. The beautiful and the gorgeous exterior only serves to hide the monstrous vapidity of a life where beauty and the adulation that it brings are the only things residing in their soul. All they care about is the beauty of their flesh and how people respond to that. Nothing else. The substance is well worth a watch. It brings to life the age-old saying, beauty is only skin deep, and it does it in a film brimming with body horror, gore, and gallons of blood. You'll have a good time in this one. Just be prepared for some pretty gory moments where you have to cover your eyes if you're not into that sort of stuff. But it'll leave you with a very interesting discussion on the car ride home.